talk about some earnings then. For Lupin, it was a mixed bag this quarter. Margins were weak, but both India and the US business growth was strong. So to talk about the quarter as well as the outlook now for the coming few quarters, the Managing Director of Lupin, Nilesh Gupta, and the Chief Financial Officer, Ramesh Swaminathan, join us. First question to you, Ramesh. Good afternoon to you both. Margins have come in below estimates. There's been an element of higher personal costs. There's other expenses as well. So what's resulted in this margin pressure, and what's the guidance now in terms of a range going forward?
Quarter 4 gross margins are 62.9% as compared to quarter 3 of 63.4%. The sequential dip in gross margins is largely due to, in fact, a product mix change. That's a 0.5 percentage point. We of course had the benefit of some rupee depreciation vis-a-vis the dollar, but equally there was a disadvantage when it came to, in fact, the South African rand or Brazilian real and so on. If you were to compare the gross margins of this quarter with that of the previous year, the decline, as Nilesh was saying, is essentially because of Ranelazine. But that's where it is. Overall, we do believe that the gross margins range is between 62.5 to 63.5 going forward.
Okay, Nilesh, US has come in above estimates at 212 million. How did the key drugs, do this quarter? What's your guidance now on the US business? And can you also talk about this albuterol inhaler? What are the prospects?
So I think the US obviously performed very solidly in Q4. Again, that was part of the expectation. Q4 is usually our strongest quarter. Q3, Q4 are stronger because there's a little bit of the season that picks up, and there is, a general pickup of business by the end of the year as well. I think the, levothyroxine is still in growth mode. So while there was a nice number in Q4, going forward, we expect levothyroxine to increase materially into the quarters to come as well. In fact, there was a little bit of lumpiness, and especially March kind of threw it out of gear because people started stocking what they felt was really important from a continuity perspective as well. So we were able to take care of that, but there was increase in products like famotidine, which are otherwise much smaller, because people felt that was an important one once ranitidine got impacted. So there was a little bit of that. We were able to take care of the surge in demand. But like I said, levothyroxine going forward would be a further build. There are some products which will come down. Products like, the metformin products were light in Q4. They will pick up again in the quarters to come. Obviously, our eyes are, one on making sure that this base business remains very solid. I think we've been able to really establish it to stay solidly at the 170, 180 plus number. And then obviously, as you add new launches, things grow. Albuterol comes up in that light. As you know, we had talked about a second half launch for albuterol, and we've had good positive movement with FDA, and hopefully we'll be able to launch it even sooner.
Well, similarly, India did quite well. Ramesh, could you tell us what was the impact of COVID-19 in the past quarter, and will we see a more prominent impact in the first quarter, given the fact that IPM sales have declined sharply in the month of April?
We did fairly well in the whole of last year. If you it grew by 12.7% as compared to FY19. Last week of March, we did see a lot of stocking of the channels in anticipation of COVID. April is also good, but we're hearing that there's a lot of dark clouds around the horizon when it comes to, in fact, May and June. We are cautiously optimistic about the future, though.
Well, Nilesh, coming across to you, if you could give us a sense in terms of, reports are indicating various concerns in terms of metformin. Could you give us a broad idea in terms of how much does it contribute to your total sales? Also give us a sense in terms of what are the protocols in place to make this safe?
I don't think there's a problem in metformin overall. I think the metformin, for example, specifically, there doesn't seem to be an issue with metformin API. unlike the sartans and some of the others as the like. It seems to be more contained with some formulations than with others. So I would not see a blanket ban happening. From our perspective, FDA is looking at specific products and they're taking specific actions around that right now. So I think the story has to unfold a little bit more, but I don't see it as a blanket issue on metformin.
Okay, Nilesh, now some updates on your units. First up, what's going on with the remediation of Goa, Pitampur? There's Mandideep, Somerset, Tarapur. Can you give us a sense of, what are the updates on these units? And also, is there any possibility of a remote audit taking place by the US FDA?
In the first wave, I would say Goa and Somerset are the ones that are almost ready for inspection or will be ready for the inspection in the next couple of months. We don't have direct guidance from FDA on how they would go about the reinspection, but obviously it would not be an in-person inspection. So, the idea for us is to put up Somerset literally in the next month or so for a reinspection. We had talked about Goa to be put up by March, April. That's got delayed by a couple of months because there were specific areas that we still wanted to work on. So I think in the next couple of months we'll put up Goa, very shortly followed by Pitampur as well. We want to do more work at Mandideep before we put that up for reinspection. But I think we're still clearly on track for both Goa and Somerset to be cleared in the course of the fiscal.
Okay, Nilesh, finally, President Trump has been making more noises on becoming protectionist. What's your sense about how things are looking to pan out?
I think there's a very clear interest in the U.S. to at least for essential medicines secure that supply chain better. I think India has a very, as 40% of product sold in the U.S. comes from India. There's a really solid reason for that. I think the economies of scale, the efficiencies that we have, the capability that we've set up, all of those have contributed. So, I don't think it's an instant change, but I think on select medicines, there is a clear intent to source locally or to ensure that there is better continuity of supply. We would really, even count on government and policy to be able to pave the way. I think India did a very responsible job of supplying even through the course of the COVID crisis. And we would count on even policy and government to be able to influence putting India in a preferred position on that. Selectively, for the right products, we would ramp up in US as well. But I think the core of it still remains the efficiencies, the economies that you bring from India, and that would not be easy to uproot.
Okay, all right, Nilesh and Ramesh, thanks so much for joining into CNBC TV18 and giving us a brief update in terms of how did the last quarter do and also giving us a sense of how this year will pan out. Well, for the time being, keep an eye out on the Nifty Bank. We're just talking about it being down 400 points in early morning trade.